Thank you very much for coming. When I was growing up, my dream was always to be where you sit, a journalist covering events and then making sure I put out the truth. What you do not know is that I did my internship at GNA. In fact, I did try a little bit of broadcast. I was with GTV for a while, and then did a bit at GNA, and then as fate would have it, I'm sitting here engaging. But thank you very much for coming. I'll go straight to the issues at stake. On the 26th of March, 2013, 26th of March 2013, ItalConstruct International Limited applied for a bridge finance of $7 million, a CD equivalent of 14 million at the time, for a period of 6 months, subject to the terms and conditions, for the purpose of building over 4,120 affordable houses. In support of the application, ItalConstruct furnished Ivory with the following documents: a cabinet approval signed by the Secretary of Cabinet at that time, a parliamentary approval, an agreement between the government of Ghana and UT Bank, a joint memorandum to Parliament by the Minister for Water Resources and the then Minister of Finance, I think it was then Alban Bagbin and the Honorable Commander for ETMSIS and Commander for, I think the parliamentary was signed by Bagbin. Having given us all these documents, we asked them to provide us with further collateral. So apart from these documents they gave us, they also gave us personal guarantees of the two directors of ItalConstruct, and then we demanded further guarantees. They brought us a guarantee from SIC, a guarantee bond from SIC Insurance Company Limited. As a matter of fact, this was not the first time that SIC Company Limited had issued a guaranteed bond to us in favor of our mutual client. For instance, they had issued an insurance bond to Amalgamated Company Limited for the purchase of equipment for the security services, which was duly executed and paid for, and there was no issue in that regard. They also issued another guarantee for Aquamasters for the drilling of boreholes in the Brahafwe northern parts of the country. Again, there was no problem. That was also paid for fully. So we did not suspect any problem at all when they brought this guarantee to us. We are also aware that before SIC issued this guarantee, they did their own due diligence, and we happen to have copies of the report that the risk department wrote. We are also aware that SIC, after taking on the guarantee, did proceed to do reinsurance of the bond they had underwritten, and did reinsurance to other insurance companies. So to our mind, this was in the normal scheme of things, the normal businesses that they had done. In the light of the above, we advanced the loan facility to ItalConstruct for a period of 6 months. However, ItalConstruct defaulted in the repayment of the loan, and after which we made a demand on the payment for the facility on both ItalConstruct and SIC Insurance on the 1st October 2013 and 18 October 2013 respectively. Court action. Consequently, on the 22nd of November 2013, we initiated an action at the Commercial Division of the High Court, claiming against ItalConstruct International Limited, Kwesi Beidu, James Kwejiri Agri, and SIC Insurance Company Limited, jointly and severally, for the recovery of the amount due and owing on the facility. appearance was entered by the in-house counsel for SIC in the name of, I think it was called Mr. Mao Venu, who consequently filed a statement of defense to the claim in the view of the wording of the guarantee issued by the SIC Company Limited. The nature of the defense filed by SIC, which virtually admitted the liability, we proceeded and applied for summary judgment against SIC. So when we looked at the defense that SIC had filed, we thought that it was a very loose and it was a very weak defense. So we filed for summary judgment. However, pending the hearing of the application for summary judgment, SIC Company Limited and ItalConstruct requested to have a meeting with us on how they intended to pay the debt and requested that we hold on with our application for summary judgment pending a negotiated settlement. And to this we agreed. At the time of meeting, their total indebtedness was 91,918,418 cedis and 35 pesos. Now, how would the guarantee that was meant to be just be 19 million jump to 91.9 million? I'll deal with that issue. Therefore, they proposed the following: a reduction of the amount, a freeze on the interest, payment of the outstanding debt in 2 installments within a period of 9 months. After examining their proposal, we declined to reduce the outstanding amount, but agreed to freeze the interest subject to the repayment of the debt within 9 months period as proposed. The agreement was reduced into writing. They took it away and promised to revert to us and execute the agreement. After 2 weeks, on the 24th of November 2014, we were furnished with signed copies of the agreed terms of settlement executed by the then Managing Director of SIC Insurance Company Limited and the Company Secretary of SIC, together with the 2 directors of ItalConstruct. The terms of settlement was then filed in court on the 24th of November 2014 and entered as consent judgment on the 27th of November 2014. Contrary to the terms as agreed under the terms of settlement, both ItalConstruct and SIC once again failed to repay the amount. Hence, we proceeded to levy execution against them by freezing their accounts. We froze the accounts of both ItalConstruct and SIC. They were supposed to make the first payment by the 31st of December 2014. They did not pay. A few days after that, we initiated the action. Fresh action by SIC. SIC then issued a fresh action in court against Ivory Finance, the then Managing Director of SIC and ItalConstruct, seeking to set aside the consent judgment on grounds of fraud against, amongst others, and apply for a stay of execution pending the determination of this fresh action. Now, let me explain here. When SIC Managing Director and the Company Secretary signed this consent judgment, to our mind, this was an action of the board. The Company Secretary represents all that the board does, and the Managing Director is the person that the board has put out as dealing with in these transactions. After they had signed the thing and refused to pay, they called us for a meeting. So we went to SIC to have a meeting with them. We sat in their boardroom. They agreed that they were going to pay, only that they were going to pay in a certain manner. They wrote us a letter indicating that they were going to pay 20 million cedis as the first payment, and subsequently they pay the rest later. Because we had a previous agreement with them, which was a consent judgment, we rejected this. As soon as we rejected this, then they filed this fresh action, which they called an action in fraud. So they sought to stay execution. The High Court on the 26th of February 2015 granted the stay of execution pending the determination of the fresh action. So there was one action in court where the consent judgment had taken place. They went to a new court and filed a fresh action that the consent judgment for which they had sought to negotiate, for which they had written us a letter saying they will pay in a certain manner, was obtained by fraud. And so this new judge stayed the action and said, well, before I stay the action, you at least pay the principal amount. So they paid 19.3 million to Ivory Finance without interest, in order that they would determine the action, the new one they had started, which they said they were pleading fraud because consent judgment was obtained by fraud. As we speak now, the High Court ruled that there was no fraud anywhere, and so SIC should pay. SIC further appealed to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal has also held and ruled that there was no fraud, and so SIC should pay. So as we speak now, the matter is before the Supreme Court. We want to state emphatically that apart from the 19.3 million that we have received, which was paid to the High Court in order that we get it, we have not received a pesewa from SIC. We therefore urge the public and especially the media to disregard the disinformation going around that SIC has paid us 91 million cedis and we are still pursuing them in court. In fact, if they had paid us any money, what will we be doing before the Supreme Court of Ghana? Apart from the 19 that they paid, which was the initial 19, why would we be pursuing if they had paid us any money? We have not received any money from them. All we have received is the 19 million. So there's disinformation going up, some of it on WhatsApp, some of it on the news is false information. We have not received any such money from SIC, and the matter is before the Supreme Court as we speak now. I know that in matters like this, the real issue is in the Q&A section. Now, let me say a few things. First of all, as I said, the matter is before the Supreme Court, so we don't want to fall into the thing of contempt. So we want to be very careful what we say and what we cannot say. Then, secondly, SIC is a listed company on the Ghana Stock Exchange. What we say and what we don't say can affect their fortunes on the exchange. It could bring down their market share, could increase them. And there are people who are working in SIC. SIC trades on its credibility. And if it happens that its credibility is being brought into question, then trading for them becomes very difficult. So we want to have all these things at the back of our mind as we answer these questions that we are prepared, that we want, as we have this discussion with you. We thank you very much. We would like to explain a few things as you ask the questions and bring it. The first one I'll take on is a question of how did something that was supposed to be 19.3 million move up to 91 million? Ladies and gentlemen of the press, when you take a loan, there's an interest portion. When you refuse to pay the loan, there's a punitive portion added to it. So in this contract, which we will be finished with very soon, it says that the interest rate was 5.5% a month and a punitive rate of 8% if they don't pay. Now normally, this punitive rate is applied if you fail to pay. And the reason is very simple. If people do not pay their loans, your investments will go bust. So we make sure that we put in enough punitive measures to ensure that when you take a facility, you pay it and pay it on time so that the financial system can keep going. So you have to work it out. 19.3 million to be paid at a certain date. If you don't pay and you start applying 13.5% every month, interest on interest, you will arrive at that 91 million. Ladies and gentlemen, as we speak now, if we decide to take all that SIC owes us, we are talking about over 500 million Ghana cedis of interest payment that has not been paid to us. That is the matter we are talking about today. And that's the matter that is before the Supreme Court of Ghana. So again, to emphasize, we have only gotten our 19 million. We have not gotten any interest on it. Now, SIC seeks to say that in the contract, it says they should pay only 19.3 million. Yes, the contract does say that if you pay on time and you pay according to the terms of the contract, you upon our first demand of it, you will pay 19.3 million. But if you drag your feet and I take you to court for 2 years before you make the first payment and you say that I still want to pay the same 19.3 million, that is not something we will agree, because between that 19.3 and that time, it's people's money you have kept, and those people will be asking for interest. If any of you places money with Ivory Finance and I come and tell you that, well, I will not pay you interest for 2, 3, 4 years because SIC was in court with me, it will be untenable, and so I must pursue that interest. That is why I'm pursuing that interest in the Supreme Court of Ghana today. The other question that people they've sought to put out on air is that the board of SIC says that they were not aware that the managing director of SIC had signed this contract or had issued the guarantee bonds. To start with, these guarantee bonds are the normal things as SIC do. As I said, this was the third bond they had given us. The first two, there was no problem, no issue. And we are aware, because of having sued each other 19 bonds that SIC had issued to several other companies apart from us, some of which have gone back, some of which have been done. So it is not true that we are the only people that they issued bonds to. And indeed, they went ahead and reinsured these bonds in the light of normal business as SIC would do. The second point is to say that the managing director did it without the permission of the board. Now clearly, if every board seeks to use this as an excuse, there will be no business in Ghana. Because if I authorize some of my people to go and work, and they do the work, and we lose, or something goes bad, and I sit back and say, well, he wasn't authorized to do so, and that is an excuse, then there will be no business at all. Ladies and gentlemen, it's like saying a minister of state signs a contract with you, you take the contract to court, and the president says, well, this minister has no right to sign this contract before us. That clearly cannot be an issue. More so when this was signed by the company secretary of SIC, who is still at post, still recording minutes of the board. Clearly, there must be something going on that we don't understand. The main point we wish to state emphatically is that we have not received any 91 million cedis from SIC as we speak now. All we have received is the 19.3 million which was paid to court, which came to us. Another point that I've heard them raise in the public view is that the SIC managing director, former managing director, did at one time in her career work for me. Yes, that's true. She did work for me at one time in her career. But so have many people who have worked for me in this government and in the previous government who worked for me at one time or the other in their lives. Because what I do for a living is take bad companies, fix them, and turn them around, and look for people to run these companies. When the companies do well, I sell them off and move on. That's what I do for a living. And so somewhere along the line, somebody will have to work for me. That she worked for me is neither here nor there. The other question they normally put is that, how about because she worked for me, so therefore there was collusion? How could there be collusion when at all points in time it is ItalConstruct that will be paying the money? The first point of call is ItalConstruct. As we speak now, all of Ital's accounts, they were represented by lawyer J.K. Ajiman and his people. All of their accounts and their properties based in Ndu Corner, all the buildings that they built have been seized. How do they benefit by conniving with the SICMD and Ivory Finance to do this transaction? It doesn't make sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, the lies and the misinformation being peddled is what we sought to straighten out in this press conference that we called you.
It is SIC that has appealed. For they are seeking to set aside the consent judgment, and the High Court, both the High Court and the Court of Appeal, have declined to grant their release. So they are appealing to the Supreme Court. Is that the then managing director, Ivory, gave an undertaking to the court that we should allow them to use the vehicles for operational purposes, pending the determination of their appeal. So as it stands now, the vehicles are still under the custody of the registrar, but just that it's been released to them, it's still under attachment. Their properties are still under attachment. They cannot sell. So that's the position.
I just wanted to find out, in one of their listings, they said that the loan, the contract covered 28th March to 27th September, 27th September. And that was a period, I think in 2014, that was a period that the bond was to be in place. But your agreement with us covers 14th April to October 10th, you have not forgotten the date. That was one of the things they were saying, that as at the time Atal defaulted, the bond expired, yes. So how will you react to that?
They said the bond had expired 3 days, isn't it? Okay. If you read the bond, and I'll give you copies of the bond, it says, this guarantee, and I'm reading from this section, it says, this guarantee shall be valid and effective for a period of 6 months from the 28th day of March 2013, and any claim under the guarantee shall be made within a period of 30 days from its expiration. So if they say the bond had expired 3 days before we made the claim, it's here, black and white. It says 30 days after its expiration. It's in here. So we made the claim. But in any case, when we went to court to ask them to pay, they had a lawyer. Why didn't the lawyer file that the bond had expired? SIC was represented by their lawyer, Mr. Malvin, who was the one leading their charge. This is a matter, if you think the bond had expired, you could have gone to court and said, my lord, the bond had expired. But we don't believe it had expired because we have 30 days within which to make the claim, and it's written here. 30 days after expiration, and this is the bond here, that they themselves, this bond is not from us. This is the bond SIC gave to us. This is their words, not our words.
I want to know what amount is in contention here. Is it 500 million or 91 million? I want to know.
It's over 500 million. Yes, because it's over 500 million. And the reason is that, as I said, it's a 13.5%. And it is interest on interest. It is punitive. But let me say a word here. Normally, when you come to us and you owe, and you say, I want to pay, I don't know any financial institution that will ask you to pay all the punitive interest. Normally, it's not. It doesn't happen that way. It is just it's like a deterrent to prevent you from going that way, or being a wayward borrower. So normally, when you come and negotiate, we don't even talk about the punitive rate. We just talk about the interest rate itself that you were supposed to pay. So if we sat down around the table now, that's what we'll be discussing. But if you want the matter to be in court, they'll be talking about the contents of the agreement, which is 5.5 interest rate and a punitive rate of 8% plus 8. Plus 8% to 5.5 plus 8%. That's what we'll be discussing in court.
My name is Vivian Kailoko. I work for City FM. I want to ask 2 questions. From what is going on, it appears it's a back and forth because just in January, I believe, SIC had an interview stating the fact that they hadn't defaulted. If you allow me to read a publication at the time, they said the event of default is very fundamental in this case because going by the terms submitted to SIC Insurance, there was no default at the time. The bond expired on 27 September 2013 as at the end of tenure of loan, i.e. the 10th October 2013, when an event of default may have occurred, had not come. And then the second thing I want to bring out is the fact that they keep saying that this deal was signed on their blind side, attributing it to their former MD, and the fact that she worked for you, etc. So there was an issue of fraud, which is also on the side. And then now it's in Supreme Court. If you look at all the developments happening, how do you see this case going in the future? And would you consider again another out-of-court settlement if they approached you based on what is happening?
Okay. As I said, in corporate governance, you appoint directors. Then when you appoint directors, the directors then appoint a managing director from among the directors who deal on behalf of the board members. Then all your actions are recorded by the company secretary. That is what our Companies Act says in corporate governance. Now, we meet here, we present this person as representing us and all the actions we do and put him out that the world can deal with him. Then we appoint this gentleman to record all our actions. And then this gentleman comes and has a transaction with you and he records the action, gives you a paper, then later we turn around and say that, well, we did it on our blind side. My understanding, having done business for a long time, is that you cannot say that. Because you either have knowledge, actual knowledge, or constructive knowledge of all the actions of your managing director. By the way, when the contract was signed, ITAL paid a premium. Because without the premium, there would have been no reinsurance. When they paid the premium, you must have board subcommittees who are looking at your income that are coming in. Is the board saying they didn't see money coming in from those bonds they were doing? 2, that she did work for me at one point or the other, as I said, is a non-issue. Because in my life as a businessman, I'll have many people working for me. I categorically deny any attempt to say there was collusion. The collusion could not have been possible. 1, because as I said, at any point in time, this contract is signed by ItalConstruct as the first defendant and SIC as the second defendant. Why would ItalConstruct sign something to collude so that they will lose all their investments and all their money? Why would they do such a thing? And how can this collusion even be possible? There is no collusion anywhere. On your issue of whether or not I'm prepared to have an out-of-court settlement, it is rather unfortunate that after 4 years we have to come out and be in the open like this. Because our belief is that the boardroom is the best place for settling these matters. And indeed, there has been an attempt to settle, I must say. In the first instance, the board invited us. We went to their board and we tried to settle. They wrote a letter to us that they were going to pay us 20 million and the rest spread over a certain time, which we rejected because it was against the terms of settlement that we had gotten earlier on. It was after that they filed this fraud thing. So there was an attempt to settle. Secondly, they sent a team led by Mr. Kwame Asante, the accountant, management consultant, to try and settle with us. The offers he was making was untenable. He was offering peanuts for what we thought will not even cover the cost of borrowing funds to pay for what they had not paid for. So we rejected it. And yes, at any point in time, we believe that the boardroom is the best place to resolve an issue. The question of whether there had been a default at the time we applied for it is a matter for management to deal with. If there's a contract and I apply and I tell you that you have defaulted and you write back to me and say, no, I have not defaulted, this is the day I will default, on this day I'll pay you your money, will there be an issue? If you say, okay, at the time I wrote to you, the default hadn't taken place, I said you have defaulted, I have not defaulted, this is the day that I am going to, the thing will expire, this is your check, take it. Will we be in court as of now? No. But we believe that we were in time when we wrote to them, because the bond gives us 30 days after expiration to still apply. And this is SIC's bond, not our bond. They wrote this to us. So, we don't know what. In fact, the board has sometimes acted in a way that we don't understand. And myself, I'm a shareholder of SIC. And I'm sure many of you have bought SIC shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange. This is a board that proceeds to pay dividend when they have all these credit guarantees crystallizing around them left and right, and not even making a provision in their accounts and telling the world that we have these things that could crystallize or that have crystallized in court. Last year, they paid dividends to government. What does that tell you? And in the accounts, there was not a note, as the law stipulates, that indeed we have this problem and we are making a note. Even though we think we can win, we are making a note. You think you can win, you lost in the High Court, you lost in the Court of Appeal, you have signed the consent judgment, you are appealing at the Supreme Court, and you write your financials and you don't even make a note of it in it, and it passes, and nobody says a word. How can that be? And proceed to pay dividend when you are under this sort of pressure? Think about it. What sort of a board would do that?
The follow-up to what you're saying, doesn't that reinforce the fact that they may never pay you what you're demanding? And the 500 million, if the Supreme Court rules in your favor, it may be difficult for SIC to pay that money, so you may never get your money.
Contracts must mean something in this country. If we're going to get GIPC to invite people, get more people to come in the country and get them to invest, then contracts must mean something. Now, when we get our judgment, and we believe we'll get our judgment, we think that it is a matter to be negotiated. This money, for us here, Bank of Ghana has forced us to write it out of our books, but we'll still pursue it. Yes.
If it's been written off as a bad debt, why do you want to stay?
Okay. You don't understand what that means. We've taken it down. It just means, well, not written out of our books per se. It's no longer on the books of Ivory, but we sold the debt. So that person we sold it to, we want his money back.
So if push comes to shove, it means it's possible that you might end up taking over SIC.
The court will give a direction, but I think ultimately it should be resolved around the board. Yes, I think so. I mean, no.
But to the extent that at the time of the deal, the SIC MD, I've forgotten her name.
Doris,
yes, was dismissed. Doesn't it say something to that extent? I don't know. I'm just trying to clear my mind of something.
Maybe yes. How true is it that Ivory Finance drafted the terms of agreement which was filed as consent judgment?
Okay.
We didn't draft the terms of agreement. We don't know. We're not in their pocket. We don't know their financial muscle. They brought a proposal, and based on that proposal, we all agreed and we drafted it, and they took it away. In fact, ITAL took it to their lawyers. Ivory took it to SIC took it to their office, showed it to their legal department. Before, that's over 2 weeks before they signed, because we were calling them to bring the agreement for signing, for filing. It took a while. They said they needed to consult, so it took a while before they brought the signed terms of settlement, which was eventually filed.
So how does? Is there any other question?
My question has
Which one is that?
on the lady and being dismissed.
Oh, the lady was dismissed. We are not in the SIC board to know exactly. We are not in the SIC board to know why they took certain actions against her. There are several reasons for dismissing the managing director, and we do not know. We are not privy to why she was dismissed. We suspect that there may have been some disagreements in the boardroom. By the way, I also know that the board chairman, I think, changed or something like that. Huh? The board chairman resigned. They brought on a new board chairman. And they go through a lot of these things. So I wouldn't know why she was dismissed. I know that she has filed a suit in court against the company, and the matter is still pending. I wouldn't know what's going on there.
Any more questions? Bernard, BFT, graphic. So we assume that you've understood anything that you have. And there will be, maybe my boss will allow some sideline interview, especially for the Peace FM and Adom. So you are permitted to have a sideline interview with him on the issue.
Yes.
So, any more questions? Any more questions, please? Okay. All right. So, we are now very clear, my colleagues.
I mean, he's you know, the impact on his books is what they want to say that the debt. That's why I said the debt is no longer on our books. It's not on the books of Ivory Finance again, so it has no impact on our books. The question people ask is, oh, then why don't you forgive them? And I said, we don't do business like that. You don't just forgive 500 million cedis. No, we have to talk. So maybe you want to say a word.
Thank you. Just to make investors give that assurance, because I know most of them, once they hear that SIC owns Ivory Finance so much, that means my money with Ivory Finance, maybe you have some difficulties. But it's totally no. Now, management about a year ago, for liquidity management decided to sold out the debts. So we sold out these debts to another financial institution. So as far as Ivory is concerned now, as it is, that debt has no impact on our operations. When we sold it out, we got the liquidity, we are trading. So if you have money with Ivory Finance, that's no problem at all as far as this debt is concerned. But the purchaser need the money. So for the case, let us continue.
Well, we want to assure our clients, clients of Ivory Finance, that this matter, yes, it started as 19 and we have received the 19.3, but we have not received the 91. We have duly conducted ourselves properly. We have not infringed any law or act as far as these transactions is concerned, and we are pursuing the matter in the Supreme Court of Ghana to ensure that we retrieve whatever we can retrieve to make our shareholders happy. As for our customers, this has absolutely no impact on our books at all. As you see in our published accounts, you can check our financial statement that we publish year on year. It's NDA, so the auditors are on site, and you will see that this has no impact on our books at all. It is rather SIC who is the most supposed to make this reflect on their books. Who hasn't done it? That's why we are calling for them to make a note that at least this debt exists and there's a potential liability that could crystallize. If you sign a consent judgment, which is your own deed, and fail to report it in your financial statements and file something against it, and you lose at the High Court and lose at the Court of Appeal, and still fail to put in your financial statements, then I don't know what kind of accounting you are producing and why the auditors will allow that to happen.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, the officials from Ivory Finance. I must say we have other officials from Ivory Finance Company Limited seated to your right. Okay, we are entreating our friends in the media to report as such, right? We're urging you to be very objective and fair in your reportage about this issue, even today and going forward. Anytime you need any information, please don't hesitate to contact us. If the other party says something that you need clarification, please come to us. Our doors are open to respond to you. Okay, thank you very much, our media men, for coming. Can we put our hands together for them? Taking their time and thank you very much. We really, really appreciate your coming.